Alex Eala met fans at Nike Fort Taguig before the presidential palace.
I am too stressed. I am pretty nervous.
And on July 13th, 2026, those two rooms were the same room.
Alex, you have such pride to the Philippines, and not only because of your success, also because the grace which you handle that success.
Picture the first one. It's late morning in Bonifacio Global City. There is a line outside a sneaker store. The people in that line have been told they are about to sit in on something Nike branded Play Mind Games with Alex Eala, a conversation about pressure, preparation, and the hours a professional athlete spends where nobody is filming. A young woman near the front of the line is holding her phone in both hands. Someone in the group behind her says the words out loud that a lot of people are thinking, "I am so nervous." Now picture the second room. It is evening on the same Monday, the ceremonial hall of Malacanang Palace. The president of the Philippines is at the head of the table, and the 21-year-old walking in, currently ranked world number 28, career high, on the ranking sheet published that same day, is about to stand up and tell that room that she is, in her own words, pretty nervous too. Two rooms, same Monday,
I am too
same
stressed.
feeling
I am
on both
pretty
sides
nervous.
of the microphone. To understand why one country turned one Monday into two receptions, you have to rewind 9 days. On July 4th, 2026, on center court at Wimbledon, Alexandra Eala, seeded 29th, playing only her third main draw Wimbledon match, beat the defending champion Iga Swiatek 7-6, 9, 6-2. She became the first Filipino singles player in the Open era to reach the round of 16 of a Grand Slam. She lost that round of 16 to Jasmine Paolini in 3 sets, and then she flew home. The homecoming that followed was not a press junket. It was a country deciding, in the space of a week, that this was a moment it wanted to hold. The tension in this story isn't between Eala and anyone else. There is no villain in Manila on Monday. The tension is quieter, and it lives inside the person at the center of both rooms. On one side of it, there is the private athlete, the one who trains where cameras are not, the one whose ranking climbed from around 140 in the world at the start of 2025 to inside the top 30 by the summer of 2026, 1 point at a time, 1 flight at a time, 1 physio session at a time. On the other side of that tension is the public symbol, the woman a country is now looking at and asking essentially to carry something. The Presidential Communications Office published the president's remarks that night. The line the president chose to lead with was not about tennis, it was about character.
Alex, you have such pride to the Philippines.
He told her she had brought pride to the Philippines not only because of her results, but because of, quote, the grace with which you handle that success.
And not only because of your success, also because the grace which you handle that success.
For many Filipinos watching the live stream, that sentence landed harder than any scoreline. Because that is the sentence that turns a player into a symbol, and a symbol is a heavier thing to carry than a ranking. She is 21 years old. Her next tournament, the Mubadala City DC Open in Washington, begins on July 25th. There are 12 days between being received by a president and being back on a hard court in a first-round match. That is the tension. Nobody put it there on purpose. It's just what happens when a career accelerates faster than the calendar. Start with the morning, because the morning is the part most of the international coverage missed. Nike Fort in Bonifacio Global City opened its doors for what the brand called a morning of stories, lessons, and meaningful conversations beyond the court. That phrase, beyond the court, is worth pausing on. This was not framed as a signing line. It was framed as a masterclass. Eala arrived in a crisp white shirt featuring a Filipino design. And yes, the lifestyle desks noticed the ruffled socks. And yes, GMA's lifestyle section wrote a piece about where to buy them. But underneath the fashion coverage, what happened inside the store was structured differently than a typical fan event. The conversation was about the mental side of the sport, about what pressure feels like, about the hours nobody sees. According to ABS-CBN's reporting from inside the room, Eala talked about her younger self, the version of her who dreamed of exactly this, and said something close to, "It's so much better than she could have ever imagined." That was the morning. Now the evening. The Presidential Communications Office release describes it plainly. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. hosted a homecoming reception at Malacanang Palace, and conferred a presidential citation on Eala for her Wimbledon run. The Philippine news agency reported the citation formally recognized her as the first Filipino to reach the round of 16 of a Grand Slam singles tournament. Dinner in the ceremonial hall, family present, the president speaking first. Here's what he said in full in the room. Quote, "Whenever we have these programs here, I always begin by saying, it is my pleasure to receive you. And when I say that tonight, it's not polite. I really am so happy to have you here." Then later, "You have brought such pride to the Philippines, to the Filipinos, and not only because of your success, but also because the grace with which you handle that success. You show the greatest, best qualities of Filipinos." End quote. Notice what the head of state chose to compliment. Not the win over Swiatek, not the ranking, the way she carries it, because the country was not celebrating a result. It was celebrating a person. Take one breath here, because the next part is the part the whole day was building toward. This is where the room went quiet. Eala stood up to speak. She began with a confession that almost no elite athlete makes out loud. Quote, "I have to confess I normally do not get very nervous when I have to talk, but today is the exception. I am pretty nervous." End quote. Think about what that sentence contains. This is a player who, 9 days earlier, had walked out onto center court at Wimbledon and beaten a 6-time Grand Slam champion in front of a global audience without visible tremor. And she was telling the president of her country that a dining room in Manila had more weight in it than center court. Then came the line that the Philippine news agency chose as the emotional center of its report. Quote, "I feel very seen. Hearing that come from you, I feel like all the hard work that I've done is seen. All the hours that aren't on TV are seen and validated and appreciated." End quote. Every professional athlete has those hours. Almost none of them ever get to say out loud in the country that raised them what those hours cost. On Monday in the ceremonial hall, she did, and then, because the moment was not finished yet, she said it again in Tagalog. "Tagumpay nating lahat. This is our victory. Ours, together, all of us." She followed it with, "Lubos kong ipinagmamalaki ang pagiging Filipino. I take great pride in being Filipino. I carry the flag with me wherever I go. So I promise that I will continue to represent the Philippines in the best way that I possibly can." That was the sentence that turned Monday from a news event into a memory. To understand why the state moved this fast, you have to look at what the international press did first. It wasn't Manila that told the world Alex Eala was different. It was center court. On the morning of July 5th, ESPN led its tennis page with the headline that she had dethroned the defending champion. Sky Sports ran the same result with the phrasing "huge shock." The New York Times, through The Athletic, made her Day 6 recap the lead item and wrote that she had exploded into the sport's wider consciousness. Those are not Filipino outlets. Those are the outlets that decide in real time whose careers become storylines. When 3 of them make the same call on the same weekend, a president's office notices. That is the part of the pipeline most fans don't see. The palace reception on July 13th was possible because center court on July 4th was undeniable. Marcos, in his remarks, was not manufacturing the story. He was ratifying one that global tennis media had already written. Now widen the frame because the 2-venue day is bigger than either venue by itself. Filipinos have seen state receptions for athletes before. Manny Pacquiao, Hidilyn Diaz after her Olympic gold in weightlifting in Tokyo. These moments happen. What was unusual about July 13th, 2026 was the compression, fan meet in the morning, palace dinner that night, second fan meet already scheduled for July 15th at Glorieta Activity Center per Philippine Stars reporting from July 9th. The private sector, Nike, and the state sector, Malacanang, welcoming the same person on the same day, structured almost like a relay handoff. That kind of compression happens when a country is trying to catch up to a career that is moving faster than its schedule. She reached world number 28, career high, on the same day she received the citation. The ranking sheet and the ceremonial hall validated her within the same 24-hour window. And underneath the ceremony, the practical stakes are these. At number 28, she is inside the WTA seeded pool for hardcourt Grand Slams. The next 12 to 18 months of her career will look structurally different from the last 12. She will not always be the story other players build around. She will be the story other players prepare for. That is a different sport at the professional level, and it starts functionally on July 25th. Which brings us to the part of the story the ceremony cannot cover. She lost the round of 16 to Jasmine Paolini, 4-6, 6-4, 3-6. The match the whole country is celebrating is a match she did not win. The palace reception is not for a trophy. It is for a threshold. Eala said as much. In her own words to the room, per the Philippine news agency's account, that the recognition was not a finish line and that she was setting her sights on greater milestones. She now takes a scheduled 3-week break before the Mubadala City DC Open, the WTA 500 in Washington, running July 25th through August 2nd. The field includes Marta Kostyuk, Naomi Osaka, and Venus Williams. Her return to competition will not be gentle, which is the point. The hours that aren't on TV, the ones she named in the palace, resume on the practice court sometime this week. The country now knows those hours exist. The player still has to log them. Here is what July 13th, 2026 actually was. 2 rooms, same Monday. In the morning, a line of strangers in a sneaker store who were nervous to meet her. In the evening, a ceremonial hall where she stood in front of a president and was nervous back. And in between, the realization, for her and for the people watching, that the 2 rooms were the same room. Everyone in both was doing the same thing, waiting to be seen through her. The Nike phrase was meaningful conversations beyond the court. Everything that mattered on Monday happened beyond the court. What Alex Eala represents now is not a ranking. It is not a Wimbledon round of 16. Though that is what got her the invitation, what she represents is a compressed answer to a question a country has been quietly asking itself for a long time about individual sport at the global level. Can one of ours stand on that stage on that day and speak for us without flinching? On Monday, she answered in 2 languages. She said all the hours that aren't on TV are seen. And then in the language her grandparents used at home, she gave the victory back. Tagumpay nating lahat.